Welcome to the Painter Marketing Mastermind Podcast, a show created to help painting company owners build a thriving painting business that does well over $1 million in annual revenue. I'm your host, Brandon Pierpont, founder of Painter Marketing Pros and creator of the popular PCA educational series, Learn, Do, Grow, Marketing for Painters. In each episode, I'll be sharing proven tips, strategies, and processes from leading experts in the industry on how they found success in their painting business. We will be interviewing owners of the most successful painting companies in North America and learning from their experiences. On this episode of the Painter Marketing Mastermind Podcast, we host guest Jason Paris. Jason is the founder of Paris Painting, a residential painting company based in Minneapolis that does over $10 million in annual revenue. Jason discusses the many struggles he has encountered while building Paris Painting from zero to over $10 million per year, and the character traits he possesses that he believes allowed him to succeed. He also provides some very insightful thoughts about the future of the painting industry and why he currently considers painting to be a hidden gem for ambitious entrepreneurs. If you want to learn more about the topics we discussed in this podcast and how you can use them to grow your painting business, visit paintermarketingpros.com/podcast for free training, as well as the ability to schedule a personalized strategy session for your painting company. Again, that URL is paintermarketingpros.com/podcast. Jason, thanks for joining us on the Painter Marketing Mastermind Podcast, man.
Thanks for the invite.
Yeah, absolutely. So tell us a little bit about Paris Painting, your background, kind of how this whole thing came to be.
Yeah, so Paris Painting is a company I started in 2012 with a paintbrush and a dream. And it took 5 years to get to $1 million top line revenue. And so those first 2 years were just part-time. I didn't start doing it full-time until 2014. But in the subsequent 5 years, we went from 1 million to $8.3 million.
Wow.
And then along the way, we bought a couple other companies. We started a holdings branch and grew beyond just $8 million of painting revenue. Yeah, that's a little bit of the background of what we've started with. And then I painted in college. So I went to the Google gods and said, college summer job, and top hit that day was a company called College Pro Painters. And so my destiny was set at that moment by Sergey Brin. That's kind of history from there. So I painted for a few years in college, graduated, went to the corporate world, graduated with a degree in economics from the University of Minnesota, and went to work for Automatic Data Processing, being I forget what they call this, but it was basically a glorified B2B sales rep. Did that for about 13 months. And then didn't really convince my wife, just had a brief conversation with my wife and said, this is not life-giving. It is nice to have a steady paycheck. And they treat me well and I treat them well, but I've got that entrepreneurial spirit, like, and I think there's only one way to solve this. And she was like, phenomenal, supportive spouse, follow your dreams, follow your passion. Let's do it. And that's how I got started, man.
That's amazing. Yeah. That itch doesn't go away. I don't think it goes away.
In anything in life.
Yeah.
Right? It's like, as an entrepreneur, you want to drive, and you're never satisfied. That's something I realized where I was doing some things to my yard and cutting some trees down, trying to improving the view. And my wife said something, said, maybe after you take those ones down or you clean this up, I think you'll be satisfied. And I kind of paused for a second because the concept of being satisfied never crossed my mind.
That's really funny.
Could you just the concept of you ever will be satisfied? You're just going to manically want to drive and improve things forever.
Yeah. Type A to it.
Yeah. You're never satisfied.
Yeah. It's a blessing and a curse. It allows you to accomplish a lot, but you never get to fully reap the reward because you're always looking
to find some healthy outlets to pour your passion into.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Prior to us starting this recording, you mentioned you're going to do a 100-mile race, conduct Ironmans, you jump into freezing tubs.
Yeah.
Seems like you got a lot of outlets that you got going on.
Find a healthy outlet, man. Otherwise, drive everyone crazy. And we've got a great team here at Paris Painting. I'm not involved in the day-to-day outside of a board level anymore. So I used to work super hard in the painting company, and it was my outlet, my passion to do a bunch of stuff. It's grown, it's thrived and succeeded for not just myself, but a lot of others involved, partially because of my, I'll call it humbleness to step away.
Yeah.
But then you need other outlets to pour that passion into. Right?
Got it.
You're not going to get to the office and grind at 5 o'clock. You can just wake up and go run in the dark at -10 degrees at 5 o'clock.
Yeah.
That's what
I
do
love it,
this
man.
It's
And
-10 in Minnesota.
that's amazing.
Get
Yeah.
up to 0.
So the intensity is there. So I want to kind of, I'm probably jumping the gun a little bit, but that's okay. You went from 1 million to 8.3 million. So it took you 5 years. And I know 2 of those were part-time to go from 0 to 1 million. And I'm sure you learned a lot there. And then 1 million to 8.3 the hard way. Okay. Can you kind of talk about how those first 5 years and then the next 5 years sort of differed? Because 1 to 8.3, that's massive, massive growth. Not that 0 to 1 isn't.
Yeah. They're different types of growth for sure. Right. There's a real difference between founding a company and building the foundation to perfecting the process. Right. Those are 2 different things. And man, those first 5 years were grit, struggle, perseverance, pain, joy, sadness. So you're just riding the emotional roller coaster. It was all me on my shoulders, right? You obviously have people that work for you, but you're the one carrying the load. And man, I just think back to those days and what was I thinking? And obviously I was a genius, right? I knew it would pay off. I knew that. I always knew that someday it would pay off, but you're
like Elon Musk, man.
No. Well, that's what, our good friend would say that. But those are the 5 to 9s, right? So I left my 9 to 5 so I could go work a 5 to 9. And I remember, Saturday nights you make a lot of sacrifices in those early years. So Saturday nights, my wife would want to watch Netflix. I'm like, I got to go work. And I would work till I got dizzy and I couldn't walk from the computer to this big scheduling whiteboard wall thing that we had. And then I drive home, sleep. And you could sleep in on Sundays because you didn't have to go to church till 9. Typically you're in the office at 5. So you're sleeping in extra that day. And those were the grinding years. And then we had, I think our 2-year-old was born the year that we crossed 2 million. So it's hard in those early years to have young kids too.
Yeah.
You don't see them as much. That you're making a sacrifice that's the hard thing about entrepreneurism is you don't know if it's going to pay off or not. Right?
Yeah.
If you work in a big company or if you're a partner in a law firm, you put the time in, people are going to recognize it and you're going to earn up that either relational or real equity. When you're an entrepreneur, nobody knows or cares the sacrifices you're making and putting in, right? It's about results. And you don't know if what you're doing is a good decision or not. And you could actually lose money in a given year. Right?
Yeah.
If you're putting in the kind of work and passion and honestly applying a lot of skill that you have in a larger company, you can get rewarded pretty handsomely for that. So those early years are a lot of sweat equity, a lot of emotional passion, and also a lot of risk. And pain. I just can't call it anything else than pain in those first early years.
Yeah, kind of flying in the dark, and really, you're ultimately taking a bet on yourself.
Yeah,
that you're gonna.
I think
through.
In the dark too. I'd say just emphasize on my own as well. Wasn't really connected to anybody else. Didn't know other painting contractors. I remember, so I would drive mostly around in this Hyundai Elantra, and then I'd go to the paint store and painting contractors had these big, fancy, nice trucks. I was like, frick. Like these guys must all be like 8, 10, $20 million companies. I'm just a little humble Hyundai Elantra $1 million company. And that's not reality, just like social media is not reality.
Yep.
And but I had no idea. I was like, I think the purveying thought in those early years is, am I the only dumb one here?
Yeah.
Right? The reality is it's hard for everybody. Growing a business and the painting industry is a challenge. Scaling is hard to do. And but I didn't know that. I thought I was the only one that was kind of struggling in that way.
Yeah. And I think this is an amazing point because you're obviously one of the most successful painting companies, really probably in the United States, and
residential.
Residential for sure. I mean, doing Nate, we spoke with him on Tuesday. He said you guys are probably going to do over $11 million in 2022.
Yep.
And you're the chair of the board of the PCA. You have a lot going for you. And here you are saying you felt dumb and didn't really know whether you were the only dumb one. So I think that should probably make a lot of people feel a little better if they feel that way.
Yeah, I think one of my favorite messages when I talk to other painting contractors is it's okay for it to be hard, right? The people will say like, because I think that's a feeling we all have is, am I the only one that it's this hard for? And just validating like you are founding a company. That is hard. That is hard, right? And if you feel like I'm struggling and it's painful and I don't know if I'm doing it right, that's the price of admission.
Yeah.
Right? You are doing, that is a normal feeling, and just want to validate that's hard. And guess what? Next year, it's going to be hard. And I remember those early years, like it was every single year I cried, right? You get to the lowest, and I can remember every single spot, what it was, where you're just like, I don't know if I want to do this anymore. I don't know if I can do this anymore. I don't know if it's worth it. And you get through that. It's an emotional low point in the day. But I remember it was the first year I was doing it full time. I'm just gonna give you, this is a story. It's regular.
Yeah, we love stories.
First year I was doing it full time. And it just rained a couple days. We'd gone through like a wet spell. It dried up. We're out there painting on houses. We're on this big job. Crew, I was all employee based at the time. The crews were not hitting my estimate. So I was not making the margin I thought I would be making, which is stressful. So I'm out there trying to teach them, encourage them, hold some accountability. I want to show a guy like, hey, like he's just kind of like, no, you gotta like move with a purpose. And so I grab the ladder, like here, and I get the pivot tool on it. I run up there, but the ground is wet, and I'm sure I did something wrong because I'm not the smartest human being. So it starts to slip back a little bit. I'm up on the ladder. I'm gonna show them like how to really move with intention. Climb up the ladder. It starts to slip back a little bit, and then it catches and it turns, and I fall off.
Oh wow!
And I land, and I like just land on my side, and nothing major, like a bruised rib, maybe at the worst, and but just knocks the wind out of me. So I can't like talk. I'm just like, this sucks. I drive home. I drive straight home. I sit down for a second in the kitchen, grab my laptop. I go www.codeacademy.com. I'm thinking I'm a pretty smart guy. I'm just going to write code. This sucks. I don't ever want to run. I don't want to run a painting company. I don't want to do this anymore. I'm going to take Obama's advice and just learn how to code today. And now I ended up not doing that. And but I just remember that as a low point where I'm just like, what is my alternative? Because this sucks.
Wow. You were thinking about giving up and just getting a job as a developer.
Yeah. Just go write code somewhere in a cubicle and not do this anymore because it was hard. But you hit that moment, I think, every year when you're really stretching yourself. In whatever it can be. And this may not just be your business, but I was certainly stretching myself in business those years. And yeah, that's the number one message I love to give to people is what you're doing is hard and it's okay to feel that way.
That's amazing. Yeah, that is really good advice. And I'm sure it's appreciated by many people. Okay. So with you, it was a struggle. You didn't give up. You thought about giving up a few times. What would you say kind of helped you through that? Not mentally, but in terms of what advice would you have for painting company owners that maybe they're stuck at $500,000 and they want to ultimately get to past 10 million? What would you tell them?
Well, I think there's probably two parts that I'll answer. One is you have to be a little irrational and have like an irrational belief. That's how I felt. Looking back, it was like,
my wife calls it dumb confidence.
Yeah. Like, what were you thinking? Like, why would you keep doing that? Like, the opportunity cost of every single year that you're doing this is pretty large. Right?
Yeah. You don't want to sit down and do the math for a couple of years, or you're just going to quit probably.
Yeah. You're not making much money. And if you're to put that work most small businesses, they're putting a lot of skill to work too, right? They're interviewing people, they're hiring people, they're doing sales, they're doing production management, they're doing the business accounting, planning, every strategy, like all those different roles. So you have to be a little irrational. And then we never got stuck. We just had obviously pretty steady growth. But I think if you get stuck, it's being open-minded to reevaluating your beliefs. And a lot of times we have these preconceived notions, these beliefs, it's basically, the concept is first principle reasoning. You break everything down to its most fundamental concepts that are true, and then you build back up from there. So you might have a limiting belief that says, there's no good guys out there and I can't hire and I'll never grow more than 500 grand, or I'll never have the time to do the systems building that I need to do while also doing everything else. And so break that down, what's true, what's not, get some outside advice, and be open-minded to hearing something that is not a current belief that you hold. And I think that open-mindedness is a real key personal trait to those that continue to grow and not get stuck on those roadblocks.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, I think, having an abundance mindset, being open-minded, being willing to take a hard look at yourself are all characteristics of a leader and a successful entrepreneur. I do want to kind of run through an exercise here if you're open for it, because I want to make sure I understand it and everyone's listening understands it. So when you say limiting beliefs, kind of break everything down, obviously the labor shortage or perceived labor shortage, I think there's different degrees of belief there. Let's focus on that. Let's say someone's at 300,000, 500,000, and they say, man, I would be a $2 million company if I could get good painters, but I can't. What's the process? How do we do that?
I mean, I always say, let's look at the facts, right? So are there other painters out there, first of all, or are there no painters? There's literally no painters. Oh, there's lots of painters, right? You guys are there are many, many painters. Well, how many painters are there? I don't know. Let's do some simple math. Like, go to one Sherwin-Williams store in your geographical area that you want to serve. Ask them how many gallons of paint of your type of product that they sell. So for us to be the residential products, right? And say, wow, it's a lot of gallons. How many gallons do you use? And then figure out how many gallons you use. Your sales reps would know this too. You kind of get like gallons per head count, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then you do the math. You say, well, if my painter is using this many gallons and that store is selling that many gallons, how many painters is that store servicing, right? With that head count ratio.
Mm-hmm.
And how many stores are there in the area that I'm willing to serve? And then what market share does Sherwin have versus the other guys? And you can ask your territory rep because he knows that answer, right? Or just split in half. Just assume that they own 50%. Suddenly you're doing the math and you're like, there's a lot of freaking painters out there. Yeah. In the same way that there's a lot of houses to paint, right? Now we know what the kind of market cap of labor is. Like, we know that there's an abundant market cap of demand as well. You'd say, well, okay, so there is a limit to the number of painters out there. They may all be gainfully employed. And if you are the worst employer in town, you're only going to get the bottom 5, right? If you are the very worst place to work for, you go to the bottom 5. If you're not the worst place to work for, you would think that more people would want to work for you, right? So it's usually what the issue is. You don't have a business that people want to work for. It's not that there aren't people
Hard truth
working your business, right? That's the hard part. I mean, the truth of the matter is that's the first business problem that painting companies typically run into is, I can't hire my friends in my network, right? Now I need to hire people to come into my business, and they're going to get exposed to potentially chaos, and not everyone's willing to martyr themselves like I am for my company. And I don't have the same peer pressure that I do to my friends and family. So it's hard to recruit and retain labor. Yeah,
that was a big topic that I discussed with Nick Slavic on his episode, was this idea that, the labor shortage is not as severe or final as a lot of painting company owners seem to think.
Yeah, I don't want to downplay that it's a challenge in a company. But if you're an entrepreneur, you're a professional problem solver, right? That's your job. And that's not the first problem you're going to run into if you want to actually run a business. If you want to be self-employed and have you and 3 other painters painting all day, there's nothing wrong with that. And it's a phenomenal thing to do. But if you want to run a company, you're going to have a lot of problems that are a lot harder. I'll be honest, a lot harder than, how do I recruit 3 painters today?
Yeah.
right? That's like, you can't figure that out. It's not getting easier in life.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's an excellent point. I think a lot of painting company owners sort of struggle with this transition, especially if they started as a painter from being self-employed and, painting with their crew to being a business person and an owner of a business. And I think employees, hiring, managing, that's a big learning curve, but it's a necessary learning curve if you want to actually get to 1 million, 2 million
It's
and up.
like it just exposes everything else in the company too, right? So it's a
Mhm.
challenge, it's a learning curve, but it's also the first thing that starts to really, you can't just wing your
Right.
people see through that pretty quick, right? And the things that you're willing to do or that you can cover up with you and a couple guys, you can't cover that up or just make it happen at scale.
Right.
And it's like there's like the actual challenge of recruiting the labor that's an issue,
Yep.
but then there's the challenge of really integrating labor that's just as hard, right? And then when
Yep.
it doesn't work, it's easy to make an excuse and say, oh, it's just because kids these days don't want to work. And it's like, well, not for you. They
Yeah.
do overall, right? Sherwin-Williams sells more and more gallons every single year. More and more houses get painted. Now, I'm not saying that demand isn't outstripping supply. That's a challenge and a real issue. But yeah, there's a lot of painters out there. It's like,
Yeah.
it's not like there's no painters. There's a lot.
Yeah. And yeah, the importance of systematizing your company, having the processes, because you can't just cover for things. When employees come in, there needs to be some sort of structure, quality control,
Yeah.
customer
And that's
service.
like, so this is just one part. We're talking about a professionalized company and what are the ramifications of not being, professionally minded. I think that it's also a cyclical issue, right? There, because not everybody wants to be a painter in life, right? That is true, right? There
Yep.
is a truth that per proportion of demand, supply has not risen at the same ratio,
Mhm.
right? So it is a challenge. It is a hard thing to do. Um, so the cyclical conundrum you run into is when you're not professional, you hire people, they don't have a great experience. Now nobody wants to become a painter, right? Why would anybody want to get into the painting industry when there's not many good companies to go and work for, right?
Yeah.
I don't.
Interesting.
It's like somebody asked me if I've thought about going to high schools and talking to the kids about becoming a painter, and I'm like, we could. I think that there is a benefit to showing role models of what it can look like. But I'm like, I don't want kids to go work for most of y'all,
Yeah.
right?
You see some of these companies and it's
And
not actually a good opportunity
yeah,
for
and
them.
that's like, I want to say that humbly and make sure that that's received in a healthy way. But
Yep.
the reality is if you throw someone into the painting business, odds are they're not going to have a great experience as an employee.
Mhm.
And that's a tough deal. And then you try and petition someone and say, well, you start out as an employee and then you become this and become that. And someday you can run your own company. I don't know, man. Most business owners, it's like, I wouldn't really call that something that is a big carrot for what I'm trying to recruit people into, right?
Yeah.
For most of residential repaint, for a long time, it's been, you got Uncle Chuck in a truck and he's at Thanksgiving dinner and he's drunk, he's overweight, his truck is rusty, and he's probably getting a divorce because he never interacts with his family, right?
Mhm.
That's not a good, like, no one wants to become a painter when you see that, right? But
It's
if you
not a
got
good avatar.
you
Yeah.
got Uncle Johnny, and Johnny's like driving a Tesla, and
Mm.
he's like happy, and he engages with his family. It's like, wait a second, what's Uncle Johnny up to? Oh, he owns a painting company. Maybe I want to own a painting company when I grow up, right? And I think
Yeah.
that role model, it's a cyclical thing, but it kind of starts with being a good role model in the industry, so that other people want to jump in and join in that are going to be professionally minded.
Yeah. I think the PCA is amazing at that. And you being the chair of the board, the PCA are contributing back. I think you're kind of approaching it from a different angle. Like, hey, let's really professionalize this industry. Let's make as many painting companies great places to work as possible. And then the interest will be generated.
Yeah, that's certainly one of our big strategic initiatives is, I think that you can tack it from both sides. You want to build professionalization up in the industry because there's a lot of potential and there's a lot of gems, and with a little bit of support, a little bit of coaching, a little bit of knowledge transfer, motivation, communal engagement, there's a lot of potential to build up professionalization within some of the seeds that are already in the industry. But I think there's also a tremendous opportunity to draw professionalization into what we do, right? There's a lot of really bright minds that are in no way ever going to think of, I think running a painting company would be a great idea, right? Seems like a bad idea to most of them, most people. But if you can start to paint a path, if you can start to show a path of, no, you can run an actual company. You don't have to be a martyr and just do it for the love of the trade. You can, instead of starting a chain of restaurants, which would be a bad idea right now, right?
Tough idea. Yeah.
You could jump into a highly fragmented industry that, demand far outstrips supply. And these are, decade-long trends. And you could build a business that you can build growth, equity, wealth, and have tremendous cash flows, pretty low cash, very, very low capital intensive, great cash flows. Like that's where you get like the MBAs are like, I'm not going to go start a brewery. I'm going to start a painting company. And you see that in plumbing, HVAC, roofing, pest control has started to do that as well. There's a lot of other home services businesses that have really gone through that professional renaissance, and they're attracting great talent to come and run companies and build companies. That hasn't happened yet in painting. That's not going to last forever. So it's been kind of nice. I'll be honest. It's been kind of nice because it's not very competitive, but I think that's another way that you really start to change the industry is by drawing professionalization in.
Yeah, absolutely. I can tell you, we work with painting contractors across the country, growing them. And my wife had to pull me off the ledge a few months ago. I was going to start a second company. I was going to start a painting company in addition to running Painter Marketing Pros. And she told me to cool it. So it was good, but most likely I actually am going to jump into the fray here with you guys with my own painting company in a couple of years.
Yeah, it's a great opportunity. It's like I said, it's not very capital intensive.
Yeah.
You can't make that big of a mistake in general. Like there are things you can do, but typically your worst day is you have to repaint something, right? So it's not like a super high risk learning curve if you want to get into it. And then there's such a high demand for what we do, particularly on a professional side, right? So my belief has always been held that you've got this strata of clients, right? Just like in the food consumption industry, right? You have people that want to eat at Manny's Steakhouse. You have people that want to eat out of the food truck, right? And there will always be people that want to eat out of a food truck. Not everyone's eating out of Manny's Steakhouse, but in general, people would prefer to eat somewhere nice if it was accessible to them, right? And that's something with painting contractors. My belief is that we like to complain about the illegitimate painting contractor, right? People, I don't know if you've ever heard anybody complain, but I hear a lot of complaints of like, oh, these guys, they're just not legit and they're undercutting and it's what's ruining the industry. It's like, well, I don't think they'd exist if there were professional painting companies at enough of a scale to service the demand of clients. I think that a lot of this, if you want to call it like, there's a lot of that kind of lower tier market where people basically price themselves out of business, or they're just running at such a razor's edge of risk that it's detrimental. A lot of that exists because clients aren't able to find painting contractors that they prefer to work with to service them, and they end up settling for something less. And I always say, look in the mirror. Like you got to grow your ability of capacity so you can service more clients. So that's not as much of an issue. And I think if more contractors do that, that's one way that things improve as well. But obviously I have a lot of hypotheses and, they're all just ideas, but.
Yeah. Well, you seem to have a pretty recurring theme here of accountability, and whatever your problem is, look in the mirror because it's probably related to you as an entrepreneur. You kind of have to own everything.
Yep. Yeah. I think that's a great mindset in life is control what you can control. Be the solution, not the complaint. And that's good. I'm glad that you see that.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's great. Okay. Kind of switching gears a little bit. Want to touch on some marketing stuff. So, we're working with you guys. You guys hire Painter Marketing Pro. So I know we're going to be doing some of the web stuff, but you guys already have a very dialed in system. Obviously, you're doing, I'm just going to say you're doing north of 10 million because you are at this point. What's worked best for you? Where have you seen the biggest ROI on your systems, your marketing, everything?
Yeah. Well, first I'll say I learned that we had hired you this morning, actually, from my director, Nate. And I was kind of shocked because, I've seen you on social media and I've heard all about you, but there are a million, it's seemingly marketing gurus out there. And Nate is a pretty dialed in guy. And so if he hired you, I'm going to say I was shocked, and hopefully don't take offense to that. But if he hired you, it's like, you're the real deal, right?
Yeah.
You never know.
Yeah, he's a smart guy.
Yeah. Congrats on that. It's a good account.
Yeah.
What's worked best for us, the highest ROI piece we've had is single delivery actionable flyers. And so that's our highest ROI. It's a 14X. And we do that at scale. So Paris Painting spent a little over $230,000 delivering flyers last year at a 14X revenue. So we love paying that bill. Right?
That is great.
Return. And that was actually, so when I started Paris Painting, I was door knocking and then hanging a flyer if nobody answered the doors. That's how I started off the ground, right? Knock, 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 nobody answer, knock, 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 nobody answer.
Grassroots.
Knock, knock, knock. Hello, get the F out of here. All right, sounds great, right? Do that enough times in a day, someone answers the door and they want a painting quote. So that's how I started. You hang flyers so I don't answer. Found a company near me called Paperboy Marketing, and they delivered flyers. So I hired them. Great returns. Sweet. Did that year over year. Nate ended up selling his company in 2018. Yeah, 2018, 2019. You're probably right. 2018, you used to interview with them. And that sale, people who listen to your podcast will know that sale did not go well. He ended up having to take the company back, which is never the goal of that transaction. Paris Painting.
The risk of seller financing.
Yep. Paris Painting felt the pain of that, right? We were a primary vendor, and that was not fun to go through because we really loved their services. So he's probably explained this on your podcast, but there was a combination of things, and we ended up purchasing that company partially because of Nate's talents, right? Brought Nate on. He's now our director of marketing and customer experience. So we own that company in-house. Now it charges the same price to Paris Painting that it charges to other painting contractors just in the Twin Cities. So we don't get great savings outside of having similar ownership. So the profits go to the same people. But that's been our highest ROI tactic is flyer delivery. There was a big push in the last 2 years that Nate's been doing a phenomenal job on de-risking that, because you get that kind of return. I think 14X is pretty good. You tend to stack at scale. You start to stack a lot of chips on that. Yeah, you get too funneled in. Now you're at risk, right? So we said, this is great. However, let's start to diversify a little bit. So I think he's done a great job. I want to say he knows. I don't even want to say because my numbers are going to be wrong, but it's probably hopefully less than half of our leads come from flyers now. But Nate could tell you, I don't handle anything with marketing. He does.
Yeah, we're actually going to have Nate on for a second episode because we actually didn't really get to marketing very much. Okay. And we kind of started touching on it, but it had been almost an hour. So we both knew this was another hour-long conversation. So we're going to have it round two.
Cool.
Yeah. So that's really interesting. So 14X, obviously that's an amazing return, especially at scale, because it's easier to get 10 plus return if it's small.
Just like investing cash, right? It's like you can find somewhere to put your cash and get a 15% return, but try doing that with like $1 million.
Yeah.
Right? You can't find a place. It's harder. It's just harder.
Right. So kind of with the flyer, do you have for any painting companies that kind of thinking about this, do you have any advice for how you structure the flyer, how you target the residences, anything like that?
Yeah. Well, all credit will go to Nate on this, but I'll tell you what I know. And something that I've always liked that's on our flyer delivery piece is some kind of grounding or like a baseline offer, right? And you'll
Okay.
say like 2,000 square feet of house, rough, $299, right? And they'll say requires a custom quote, can change based off of this, and this, whatever it may be. And you get out there and it's going to be, could be a $2,200 job, could be a $3,800 job. It's all over the map, but you at least have something where a client can take this card. They see some kind of price gauge or reference, and now they feel grounded. So like that's in there. There's a face, there's my face on there from before I had kids. I have 4 kids now. So I look young and like chipper.
You're spry. You haven't been beat down by 4
Like,
kids.
oh, look
yet.
at this young guy.
He's a go-getter.
He's a go-getter, someone I could trust. And
He'll get it
they
done.
got that. There's a personal bio that touches on things that different people will pick up on. So kind of strategically placed in. University of Minnesota graduate, father of 4, like to run, and involved in my community and church, right? And those are 4 things that our marketing avatar would typically pick up on one of those 4 things. And so they see that and they relate to it, right? They're runners, they're family people, they're either a runner or a family person involved in the local community or church, wherever the 4th one I said was, or went to the University of Minnesota, right?
Yeah.
Kind of grown up in Minnesota, have a Minnesota tie or a Minnesota allegiance. This is actually a state that has the highest percentage of people that are born and also die in the same state. So we know that's a nice trigger. So you have that. And then within 3 seconds, you have to know what the flyer is telling you, right? What is it about? So you sold it for 3 seconds, 1, 2, 3, take it away. What is this about? Oh, they paint houses, right? It's gotta be super simple, super clean, crisp, have to understand. 3, those first 2 features I talked about, that's really about grounding someone to feel comfortable and secure. So it's really scary. And I'll just talk from my experience. It's really scary to reach out and try and gather a quote for something that you don't know much about. Right. So if I needed to, if I needed someone to build a website, I'd be like, I don't really want to do this. I don't really want to do it.
It's just $65,000, Jason.
I don't know where to start. I don't know what questions to ask.
Yeah.
But if I get a flyer, let's say I got a flyer and it's like website, $2,000, plus or minus, here's some things that are going to drive it up and down. Right.
Yeah.
And here's Brandon and his face is like shaven and looks nice. And here's some stuff about him personally. Like, wow, like I feel like by holding this, and we use nice, thick cardstock that's laminated. I feel like by holding this, I just feel more secure and safe when I call them. Right. And so I'm going to be looking at this. I feel grounded and secure. Like I have some reference and ammunition. So I'm not coming in blind into like a fog. That's how I interpret our marketing piece. Nate would explain it phenomenally, but I think those are some key components. The client has to feel safe, have to feel secure. It's a very scary thing that they're doing. They're reaching out to someone to collect a quote on a service that they don't know much about.
Yeah. And I think it's so easy for entrepreneurs and painting company owners to kind of forget that, we're in it the day to day, and you guys are selling jobs, and some jobs are going to be 10, 15, 20 plus $1,000. So if someone is kind of hesitant about a $3,000 or $4,000 job, it can kind of seem like, well, what's the big deal? But for them, that's a lot of money. It's not an everyday thing.
Yeah. Not every day you get your house painted.
Yeah. It's a big, and it's one of the things we've kind of talked about is it's a high risk because there's a lot of ego wrapped up in house painting. It's ultimately it's gonna really affect their mood. It's when they have family or friends come over, if it's a bad job, that's going to be really embarrassing. It's not like plumbing or electrical where you just need it done, but no one's really going to see it. Everyone's going to see it.
Yep. It's a big identity piece for a lot of people too, right? Even subconsciously. And there's a lot of humiliation that comes if it's not done well. And and clients are rightfully on edge because in painting, we have just an unprofessionalized business, right? Industry, where it's like most clients have either been taken advantage of themselves or have experienced being taken advantage of through a friend, a family member, or someone on TV, right? They watched an episode where a contractor has not acted in a way that a longstanding professional company would.
Yeah.
Right. So
no.
And you, as a contractor, you have to come into an engagement with the client knowing like they may be a little jumpy. And there's a
Right.
reason for that. Like they've been like abused either directly or indirectly, but they get it. Your subconscious doesn't know if it's you or somebody else. That's why you're in a movie. When you're at the movie theater, you're like, oh my gosh, is our ship going to crash? Like I'm in the
Yeah. Oh yeah.
just stressed out right now. I'm not on a ship. I'm in a theater eating popcorn, but I'm like worried that the ship's going to crash because my subconscious thinks that I'm there. So the clients, like they have this emotion, they have an emotional reaction and it's real. And you're like almost walking into like, I almost hesitate to use this because someone will get offended by it. But so I don't mean in a bad way, but you almost like you're walking into a battered women's shelter and you're like reaching out to someone. You're like, no, I'm not going to hit you. Like I'm trying to like help you.
Yeah.
And you're like you're going to a client and you're like, and here's the contract, but like, I'm like, here's like, this is the, like, I'm going to do what I tell you I'm going to do. Like, they're like jumpy and scared and like, I don't want to put any money down. And you're just going to con me. It's like, no, like we're good. We're good people. Like, yeah, we've been hurt, but we're a good person.
That's a great point. Yeah. You have to always start with the buyer in mind and kind of keep their, whatever past traumas or hesitations they may have in mind. When you said you have these 4 pieces of information that you give about yourself: runner, father of 4, church, and then went to University of Minnesota, and that typically your customer avatar, your target market avatar is going to resonate with at least one of those. Did you guys actually sit down and come up with, okay, here's our target avatar? What was that like?
Nate will get mad when he listens to this because he doesn't feel like we have enough data to confidently say who our avatar is.
If you guys don't have enough data to say that, then no one has enough data.
He's gonna get there though. So so that's probably not for me. That's an intentional thing. I don't know if it was. I feel like I look back at that. It's like, so here I'll give you like the honest answer is I put that stuff out there on my first flyer in like 2014,
and it worked.
And it worked. Now I look back retroactively. I'm like, these are like 4 things that are anchors for every client that we have.
Now you got to explain it. Yeah.
This is great. And so Nate would tell you that we don't have a true avatar yet. He's getting there. He's almost there, but he'd be really mad if I said that I know what our avatar is because he's the one that ultimately has to deliver on that.
Yeah. Nate is a very thorough dude. He has a lot of data.
Yes. Yeah. He's super. I mean, yeah. Cause I mean, Paperboy is just like a data gold mine of every single house in the Twin Cities metro area. And he's a phenomenal mind as well. Cause he's worked with most large home service companies in the area. Mm-hmm. And he's an entrepreneur. I could say tons of great things about him, but yeah, he's also very data intensive. Yeah. He's almost as big into like the keyboard monitor setup as I am, right? He's like, he has all those monitors up. He's got like his mouse embedded in his chair, just sitting there just squinting.
That's awesome.
So yeah, he's a data guy.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, he has made it a point that he's taken you guys to over 30 million for Paris painting. So that's
for painting.
Okay. For paint? No, for painting.
Because I think we're getting pretty close to 30 as a holdings company this next year. But
this is just your painting division.
All right, man. Let's go.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'd like to hear that.
Yeah, that'd be pretty good. Triple.
He would be the guy to drive us there from a marketing perspective too.
Yeah.
Right. I'd put my hat on no one else but him. With you on the team with him as one of his resources, right? That's obviously something he's using. So yeah, I'd like to hear that. That's great.
Yeah. In your shoes, I would definitely like to hear as well. It's good news.
Yeah.
Okay. So a lot of things are going well. Obviously for you guys, you're close to 30 million as it's a holding company. The painting division is doing over 10. Is there anything you guys are struggling with right now?
I would say our like ID biggest risk or biggest challenge is developing leaders. And so we know how to buy market share, right? We know how to produce work. We have not experienced a labor shortage in what we are offering and what we're able to stock up and ramp up with for labor. We know how to coordinate those 2 components after a job gets sold and when it needs to get produced at scale, all items at scale. The parts where you get funneled as you grow for us is developing leaders. And that's a big thing that we're investing in. That's obviously a key strategic initiative over the last year is making sure that we're well positioned and doing that forecasting, that planning of what are the future roles we're going to need over the next 3 to 5 years, and who's in the pipeline and what structures can be needed, and how do we develop and recruit and retain these leaders. So that's really the limiting factor for us. Another big piece would be, obviously, it sounds cliche, but culture, right? So making sure that the culture's in check. And ultimately, we have two key numbers that are going to determine our success over the long haul. One is our net promoter score, and the other is the internal retention. If you have happy staff and happy clients, that's what's going to sustain in the long term, right? Without those two things, you're probably on a 5 to 10 year time horizon to petering out.
Yeah, that's a great point. So when you guys are recruiting leaders, are you kind of looking internally for that? Are you typically looking externally? How do you do that?
We do both, and it's got to be done kind of at a healthy ratio too. So there's a challenge of when you are growing, you're creating a lot of new roles, and there is a risk factor involved in having someone step into a role they've never performed in, right?
Yeah.
You never want to overload the org chart with inexperienced risk in that sense. There's a ratio of what's appropriate and what's not. And I'll just tell you, in 2021, so last year, we overloaded that ratio. And we had a great year. Paris Painting particularly had a great year, but some of our other business divisions in the holdings company did not have as great of a year as we were hoping. And we had definitely leveraged ourselves quite a bit on that risk factor. So you've got that component, but then also you never want to overload the amount of external hires and key roles that you do in a given year either, right? Because you want to retain the culture. You want to make sure that the ethos is there. You always hire for values. You fire for values. You never want to have too many new people from outside the organization into key roles in a given year too. It's kind of like, I don't know. I don't watch a ton of sports, but I love reading and watching documentaries about sports. And so I like Bill Belichick as a coach. He's a love-hate guy, but he was talking about team building. I'm sure it's not his concept, but just the ratio of veterans to new guys that is appropriate in a locker room. And you got to think about that a little bit with your organization of what's the appropriate ratio, right? It's not always about having the most talented group of people in your company, but it's building a kind of a whole ecosystem of people that work well together.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's a really good point. You have some people who have the experience and can come in and know the job, and then you provide a path to advancement for employees who have been with the company and know the company really well and are very loyal, and you kind of have your cake and eat it too, sort of that way.
We're very open messaging about this is what we're doing, right? We're trying to empower everybody to have that ownership mindset and to own their role more than just being an employee, because there's a pathway for them to jump and eventually kind of own a section of a business unit. We're big believers in that. We're not like a hold the pie to ourselves group philosophically. It's really, let's share what we have and selfishly also grow the pie together with people who are very invested and have earned that position.
Yeah, the abundance mindset.
Yep.
So you guys, I think you had mentioned that it's negative 10 degrees there right now, which is obviously very cold. Yet you've managed to grow a really successful business, even though you guys endure a long and harsh winter. Do you have any advice for how to combat winter season?
Yeah. So I'll tell you what we've done and then what we're doing now. We've gotten really good at scaling up and down. So that's what we've done in the past. So I started out, as I mentioned, full employee model, and have since transitioned to majority subcontracted model. Large reason for that is we have, call it 7 months of winter here in Minnesota. And you've got 5 months and you've got rain in there as well, where everyone is trying to get all their exterior painting done, as well as interior painting that they want during that season as well. So you have to be high RPM, scale up sales, scale up production, make hay while the sun shines. And there's a lot of logistics that go into making that work well. And that's a strong point of ours. We're really good at logistics and organization. So that's one way to solve it, is just get really good at those things. We are now, over the past 2 years, it's been a strategic initiative directed from the board level of, we want to, just like a lot of things, de-risk, right? De-risk and stabilize as you get bigger. And so we want to grow our interior arm. So it's just a lot more stable throughout the year. So instead of spiking like this in the summer, it's more of like this, right? Just a smoother curve, essentially. My arms didn't make sense there. So yeah, it's part of it is just getting really good at scaling up and down. The other part is do more interior work so you're not scaling as much in proportion.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's a great point.
Maybe unsatisfying answers, but that's what we've done in the past, and that's what we're doing now.
Yeah. No, I think that'll be helpful for a lot of people. Are there any marketing or growth strategies that you've tried that you were really excited about, thought they were going to work well, and ended up being a flop?
Yeah, radio. So we did radio, and I think it's a good tactic. And I know people secondhand who have had phenomenal success in other industries like carpet cleaning in particular. So this was 2019. We spent quite a bit of money on radio, and I think it moved the needle, but it was not like an ROI piece. And Nate, I think, understands the tactic of radio, and he would be able to do it well. This is before we had hired Nate, so we're all just flying by the seat of our pants when it comes to marketing. And so yeah, that was one tactic that we dumped some cash into, and it was fun because like I'd go to church and people were like, "Hey, I heard your radio ad." Like, yeah, like, I love to have my ego boosted. This is great.
Sure, who doesn't? Yeah.
So, but other than that, I mean, we got leads from it. We certainly got a return, but not in an ROI perspective that wanted us. We aren't doing it now.
Right. Yeah. Got it. And then for smaller painting companies with a limited marketing budget who, can't be spending $250,000 a year on direct mail,
not direct mail,
or flyers.
Single piece actionable delivery. So they T-band them to like a door handle.
Got it. Okay.
The client it's a single piece that's there, and they have to engage with it.
Do they have to take it off their door?
They have to engage with it.
Yeah. Okay. So if they don't have the money to do that, or at least anywhere near the scale, what would you recommend that they start with?
Man, I'm a big fan of, what I did was just knocking on doors.
Door knocking.
Right? Get humble, get scrappy. It costs you $0, only your pride.
Only costs your pride.
Only costs your pride, man.
You learn a lot though.
You learn a lot, and I'm an introvert. Like I don't love that. But
that must have been hard.
I'm door knocking for 8 hours on Saturday.
Wow.
And that's what I'm going to do today. And like I said, it's like, no, I'm calling the cops. Then you get the housewife who answers like, I don't need a paint card, but I don't need a paint job now, but let me give my card, Actually, I don't remember what she said. I just remember she said like, and my name is like, I don't even know if I can say her name. I'll use a different, my name is like Samantha Willing. That's like willing and able. He gave me a wink. Like, no. So I like scurry away to the next house. So you just have bad experiences door knocking. It's not fun. But then you get one client who says, yeah, I'll take a quote. Like, great. When can I come back and do that? Do you want me to do it? And they're like, oh, let's do it on Monday. You go there and they say no. Okay, freak. All right. So then you're still not, you'd get more. And then eventually you get someone who says yes. You quote their job out. They say yes. Great. Now you got a job. Stick a yard sign up. And then when you're out there, I painted like my first couple of part-time years. You're in your painter whites. You're painting the house. At lunch, you take a break and you knock every door again. And you do it in your painter whites, right? Because now you have some social proof. You got the yard sign up. People have typically seen the yard sign driving in and out.
Say you're painting the house down the street.
Yep. Go back and paint. And then same thing in the evening. And that's like the golden hour. So like 5:30 to 8:30, you're knocking every door in that neighborhood. Again, I'm painting a house, and like I'm painting a house down the street. Now, how do you say no to that? That's a great, if you're looking for a paint job and the guy's knocking on your door, he's like, I'm painting a house down the street, and he looks somewhat professional and like, okay, like the shirt matches the sign I saw. That's how I would start. It's like, swallow your pride, knock on some doors, get gritty, get things off the door. Now, the second thing I'd recommend is to hire painting marketing pros. That is obviously outside of that where you would start. I'm trying to think what else. That's really flyer delivery, knocking on doors. The things people do now are so much more creative than what I did back in my day, 10 years ago.
Back in your day. Yeah.
I'm a big
so old.
Guerrilla tactics when you start out. Right?
How old are you, Jason? 35? 38?
34.
34. Oh, yeah. You're
I look
so
young.
old. Most of the people listening are older than you.
I just
Yeah. Back in your day.
back in my day, back when the iPhone was new and the Googles and the YouTube came out
Yeah.
when I was a kid. I'm not that far back, but what was happening in 2012? I don't even know.
I don't know. Amnesia. Just two old guys.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, you grinded, you hustled and you grinded hard.
Yeah, I think guerrilla marketing is a great thing to do when you're early on and just get scrappy and there's an opportunity cost you could argue, but you're not in a position where you're just like allocating capital and sitting back. Oh, I'm gonna just spend here and take my Saturday off. And then I don't know, man, you can do that. And there are people who, I mean, I've met a ton of painting contractors that scaled to $1 million way easier than I did. And that is a great thing. And people should. I did the dumb way and the hard way. But I think I still like the guys who get scrappy early and then, once you earn it, then you can start just spending and seeing what works and work with someone who can track your marketing with you and find out where you stack your chips. But
yeah, I think there are a couple of great points there. One is, I think I'm a big believer that if you're doing something entrepreneurial, you will succeed if you don't quit. The only way you fail is if you quit. Yeah. And that seems to that's always the mantra I've taken when things have been difficult. And I think it sounds a lot like the mantra you took, because obviously you didn't quit and things sounded incredibly difficult. And then the other thing is another statistic, just generalist statistic, is only 3% of your target market is ready to buy at any given time. Meaning for you, you'd have to knock on 100 doors and maybe 3 people would maybe consider getting a quote from you.
About the ratio. Yeah.
Yeah. Which is a lot of people telling you to go away.
To that consistency piece too. It's like, I knocked on every door already in my target neighborhoods that I want to work. Do it 5 more times.
Knock it again.
But some people are going to be upset and annoyed. Running a business may not be for you.
Yeah. If you're too worried about that.
If you're worried about someone being annoyed and upset with you, you might be better if you go work for a painting company and try and become a project manager or a sales rep or even a production lead. Like, those are great positions to have. You're probably not going to survive as a business owner, because this is not the first time that you're going to have to do something that's uncomfortable. Right.
Yeah.
So yeah,
it's a great point.
Buckle up.
Yeah. You're going to extend yourself one way or another in probably a lot of ways. And if you end up having to let go of employees and you've never had to do that before, hard discussion, a lot of hard.
Or you hold accountability.
Mm-hmm.
Right? You're afraid to hold accountability because now your friends won't like you anymore. Or you have a hard time, having a hard conversation with a client because, well, what if they don't think that I'm a good company anymore? You gotta do a lot of hard things. Now, I will also say I'm not the best at everything. And I found that out quickly in a couple of those cases that I talked about. And we hired a president who took over and runs Paris Painting, right? And Paris Painting has done much better with him as president than if I were president, right? So I'm like not preaching. I'm not like high and mighty telling people stuff. It's just like, that was my experience as well. Like, there are things that I was the bottleneck and the cap on of being like the business president, right? Business owner. And now I've stepped back and I'm just shareholder ownership, right? And so let the team run the company.
And you found people who were stronger in areas where you were weak, and you were able to delegate. You were able to get yourself out of the way.
I thought I was great. I'm like, I'm a great sales rep. And I would say I was good. As when you found a company, you kind of have to be good at everything. So you have to be irrationally confident, very, very gritty, and then a generalist of all things. And if you're not a good generalist of all things, there's going to be a big enough hole somewhere that's going to,
you might want to co-found at that point.
Yeah, you're going to have yep. So that is a challenge. Now, what you're not typically is all those things, and also hyper specialized in more than 1 or 2 areas. Right. So I'm a great founder, generalist, gritty, confident, good at most things, not hyper specialized in sales management. Surprise, surprise. Micah, our VP of sales, my goodness, he has been gifted in that, right? He is very, very good at leading a sales team. He could not start a company, right? He could not found a business, and he's very aware of that. We tried that with him. We tried to start Paris washing with him as a general manager. Did not go well. And we shut that down after one quarter. And so we got humbled quite a bit. And now he's performing extremely well as our VP of sales. Same thing with marketing, right? I think I've got a pretty good marketing mind, maybe not actually that good, but okay. Nate, my goodness.
Yeah.
Is like a marketing savant. It's insane.
Yes.
Same thing with being the president of a company. I think I'm a pretty good president. I think I'm a pretty good leader. I can run meetings well. I can establish a vision. I can hold people accountable. I understand a lot of different things. My goodness, if you've met Alex, he is like, I would not want anybody else running a company that I own. Right?
Yeah.
He is insane. And I could go down and down list. Eric's our CFO. I like spreadsheets a lot. He is on a whole nother level than me, right? He's our CFO. That's like all he does. It's that the way that he handles our finances are beyond my ability by a factor of 5. I was going to say 10, but I'll just say 5 because I think I'm pretty good.
Give yourself some credit. Yeah.
So yeah, just acknowledging like you're a founder. You're good at most things. You're likely hyper specialized in 1 or 2 things, but not everything, right? And if you want your business to continue to thrive, you have to be humble enough to step out of those things that are not your gifting.
Yeah, put the right people in the right seats. So do you have any thoughts as to how the painting industry is likely to change over the next 10 years?
Well, I'll just always start by saying I'll start by saying I don't know, right? Because I just need to be humble in that. But the hypothesis would be, I think it's going to professionalize. I don't think this little sneaky secret's going to last very long. I think you will see, obviously, the continuing trends of more technology. The consumer preferences continue to change, and the trends that are there for what people prefer are different than they were 10 years ago. But I think the industry in of itself will go through its professional renaissance, probably on the later end of 10 years out, if you really look at that type of a high time horizon. Right now, there's no realization of equity build in businesses. It's very uncommon. It's very uncommon that someone sells a painting company and they're able to either retain a portion of that business or have their passive income, outstrip their liabilities in life. Right? That's pretty uncommon. People will sell their company for their equipment and their client list, basically, or sometimes for their guys, or once in a blue moon for a little bit of cash. But by and large, people are not realizing the equity build of what they've embarked on because they haven't really built an asset that people are interested in buying. I don't think that's going to last long as companies professionalize. And I think that is part of what's going to drive really, really bright minds into the industry, is that liquidity of equity. And when people see that, it's pretty fun to make $100,000 a year. That's great. Like, that's a good lifestyle business. You own a great job. But, let's say you make $300,000 a year you run a good, successful little company. That's a great job that you own, right?
Yeah.
You also own the company, but it doesn't really distribute profits because you're taking all the cash, right?
Yeah.
Right. And that might be what it costs to do everything that you do, right? To be a president, primary sales driver, production manager, CFO, those kind of things, right? It's hard to recruit people to really want to do that when they can go. This is what's been happening. Like, one of the things that happens, people can go start a brewery, build it for 3 to 5 years, and then sell either part or all of it to Budweiser, right? For millions of dollars, right? It's like, oh yeah, maybe they took like 60 to 80K salaries every year. But then when they sold it for 20 million, they're making like $5 million a year, right? That's like a good deal. So I think that kind of business building where people have the opportunity to realize equity in a partial or full sale is going to be much more of a conversation in 10 years than it is right now. Right now, it's not even a concept that's out there. We talk to painting contractors. It's not a thought they have. It's not something that they're aware of. Yeah, I certainly want to have a part in moving that needle to say,
Yep.
this is an option. This is something that happens. And there is a way to build an asset that can sustain distributions to a minority founder shareholder if that's the path they want to choose.
Man, that's amazing. Yeah. All right. Well, Jason, I want to ask you just one last question. I know I've taken up a lot of your time today. I appreciate this great insight that you've shared with us. Do you have any other advice for painting company owners who are listening, who are like, man, I would love to be making over $10 million in revenue one day at my painting company?
Yeah, I think we covered some good things. One of it is being open-minded, have that humility to ask questions and hear something that is not what you believe. Be willing to step out of the way when appropriate. You are not God's gift in every area of your business. And that's just those kind of two things would be one and number two. And man, I would encourage people too. This is a great industry. Like I also want to say Paris painting was started and it's just had the tailwinds of a great economy ever since. So there's a reality of that, right? When COVID hit, there was a little dip in the economy overall, but the trades did not get hammered at all. If anything, it was the opposite. We got boosted. So I've certainly been lucky in that regards, no doubt. But yeah, the advice would be open-minded, be humble enough, seek out resources and help from others. Don't do it the hard way like I did, getting at least started. I'm a big fan of the Painting Contractors Association. So you had mentioned that's where I serve as chair of the board. It's a phenomenal nonprofit for the benefit of painting contractors. It's underwritten by four major paint suppliers. So Sherwin-Williams, Benjamin Moore, PPG Paint, and Behr all donate so that they can underwrite a lot of initiatives and programs that we do, as well as we have plenty of other sponsors that help support as well. So I'd say utilize that as a resource. That's something that's very low cost. It's underwritten. It's a nonprofit. So utilize that. Just reach out to others, take advice. And there's just also really not everyone's going to be over $10 million. So find the best life path that fits for you. And just enjoy the journey. I don't know what else to say about it.
Jason, that was amazing. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Yeah, thanks, Brandon.
If you want to learn more about the topics we discussed in this podcast and how you can use them to grow your painting business, visit paintermarketingpros.com/podcast for free training, as well as the ability to schedule a personalized strategy session for your painting company. Again, that URL is paintermarketingpros.com/podcast. Hey there, painting company owners. If you enjoyed today's episode, make sure you go ahead and hit that subscribe button. Give us your feedback. Let us know how we did. And also, if you're interested in taking your painting business to the next level, make sure you visit the Painter Marketing Pros website at paintermarketingpros.com to learn more about our services. You can also reach out to me directly by emailing me at brandon@paintermarketingpros.com, and I can give you personalized advice on growing your painting business. Until next time, keep growing.